I never believed in the old stories, but now I wish I had. It started as an ordinary hunting trip deep in the Pacific Northwest. I'd heard the warnings before. Local tribes spoke of something ancient that stalked these woods, something that wasn't meant to be disturbed. But I shrugged it off. I wasn't the superstitious type. The air was crisp that morning, the towering evergreens stretching endlessly above me. I had my rifle, enough supplies for the weekend, and an unshakable confidence that I was alone. I tracked a deer for hours, following faint hoof prints deeper into the woods than I'd ever ventured. The silence should have tipped me off. No birds, no rustling leaves, no distant chattering of squirrels, just a void of sound, unnatural and absolute. I knelt beside a fresh deer carcass, my fingers brushing over 3 deep, jagged gashes across its belly. Not claw marks, something larger, more deliberate. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of iron and damp earth. A strange unease settled in my chest. Then I heard it, a low, guttural growl so deep it reverberated in my ribs. It wasn't close, not yet, but it was there, watching. I tightened my grip on my rifle and scanned the tree line. Shadows shifted unnaturally between the trunks. I told myself it was my imagination, just the way the light played tricks on the mind. But then one of those shadows moved against the light. It was massive, taller than any man I'd ever seen, broader than a grizzly. It wasn't fully visible, just an outline, but the weight of its presence sent an icy dread through me. I took a step back, then another. The thing in the shadows didn't follow. It just stood there, watching. Then the forest breathed around me. The trees shuddered though there was no wind. The temperature dropped so suddenly my breath came out in thick plumes. My limbs felt sluggish, heavy, like I was being swallowed by the weight of the air itself. A whisper floated through the trees, low, garbled, like words spoken underwater. It was coming from behind me. I spun around, my rifle aimed, but there was nothing. The whispering grew louder, overlapping voices speaking in an unfamiliar tongue. Panic set in. I turned back toward the thing in the shadows. It was gone. Then the world erupted. A crash of snapping branches, a monstrous roar that sent my instincts into overdrive. I ran. I sprinted through the underbrush, heart hammering against my ribs, dodging low-hanging branches and roots that seemed to reach for my ankles. The ground trembled beneath me, a rhythmic pounding that was too heavy to be my own footsteps. Something was chasing me. I risked a glance over my shoulder. The thing was no longer just a shadow. Thick, matted fur covered its hulking body. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural amber hue, locked onto me with an intelligence that went beyond that of a mere animal. And its face, God, its face, was like a distorted mockery of a human, elongated and twisted with features that didn't belong. I fired my rifle blindly. The shot echoed through the forest, but the thing didn't stop. It moved unnaturally fast for something so large. I barely had time to register before it swiped at me. The force sent me tumbling through the air. My rifle flew from my hands, my body crashing into the underbrush. Pain flared through my ribs as I scrambled backward, my mind screaming at me to move. But the creature just stood there. It loomed over me, breathing heavy, staring with an intelligence that sent a primal terror through my veins. Then slowly, it lifted one enormous hand and pointed, not at me, but past me. I followed its gaze, my breath catching in my throat. A tree, but not just any tree. Carvings covered its bark, deep and old, forming patterns I couldn't begin to understand. Symbols, warnings, and then I saw them. Eyes, not just one pair, dozens, hidden within the bark, staring at me with an eerie luminescence. Watching. The whispers rose again, this time a chant, rhythmic and foreboding. The ground beneath me trembled. I felt something shift in the air like an invisible force pulling me toward the tree. I turned back to the creature. It had taken a step back. It wasn't chasing me. It was saving me. Then the world blurred. A force yanked at my chest, an invisible grip pulling me toward the carved tree. I clawed at the dirt, fighting against it, my body feeling weightless, stretched thin. I screamed, the sound barely escaping my throat. The creature let out a roar, not at me, but at whatever force was trying to take me. Then everything snapped back into place. I hit the ground hard, gasping, my vision swimming. When I lifted my head, the creature was gone. So was the tree, the carvings, the eyes. Just the silent, empty forest remained. I don't know how long I lay there, staring up at the sky. Eventually, I found my way back to my rifle, then to my camp, then back to the world that made sense. But I don't hunt anymore, because something out there hunts back.